Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what am I really doing here? Most people go through life like pieces on a board they never questioned. We are born into a culture, given rules, roles, expectations, and we play. But Alan Watts challenges us. Life is not a mission with an ultimate goal. It is a game, and even more than that, a game that only works as long as we forget we are playing it. The invisible board is the set of beliefs we take to be real. Study to succeed, work to be someone, consume to feel fulfilled. Each square on this board promises advancement, but ultimately keeps you going around in circles. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on reflections that will transform the way you see life. Watts shows us that the first trap is to believe that the game has a glorious end, as if, by achieving money, status, love, or enlightenment, you would win. But the game is circular, not linear. It renews itself with each victory, generating a new goal, a new level, a new final boss. The invisibility of the board is not in the objects, but in the mindset. As long as we believe there is something to be gained, we play like pawns. When we realize that the experience of playing is the core of the game, everything changes. But why don't we see the board? Because it is culturally invisible. It was woven into our childhood, reinforced in school, romanticized in movies, normalized in social discourse. Watts provokes us to laugh at this game, not with cynicism, but with lightness, because laughter is the first act of freedom. It is the moment when you realize that the game is just a game. So here's the provocation for you. If you woke up tomorrow and no longer needed to win at anything, would you know what to do? From an early age, we are given an invisible script. You are the responsible child. You are the funny one. You are the rebel. You are the shy one. And so, without realizing it, we put on a character to navigate the game of life. Alan Watts warns us, these roles are not you. They are just masks you have learned to wear to play the game well. The problem begins when we confuse the mask with the face. The role becomes identity, and identity becomes a prison. Those who have been labeled successful fear failure. Those who have been called strong don't allow themselves to cry. Those who have been seen as smart fear making mistakes in public. And so, we live to uphold the image, not to experience life. Watts suggests that you become aware of the social theater game. He does not say to abandon all roles. That would be another role disguised as rebellious. He invites us to recognize that we are actors on a stage, and that the magic lies in playing with the roles, not in being possessed by them. The role you think you chose may have been chosen by you, but it was probably inherited, absorbed, imitated. When you begin to see this, a crack of freedom appears. You no longer have to react automatically. You can play, improvise, invent. The big shift happens when you discover that you can change roles in the middle of the game. When the shy person decides to ask questions, when the leader accepts not knowing, when the strong person allows themselves to be vulnerable, then the game becomes lighter, more authentic, more creative. Did you know that most of the rules that control your life were never spoken aloud? Alan Watts challenges us to look at these invisible rules, the ones everyone follows but no one questions. They aren't written in a manual, but you feel them when you break them. They are rules like, don't fail in public, don't be too different, grow up fast, produce something worthwhile. They are social, emotional, and cultural codes that bind us more than any official law. These rules are passed down through the tone of voice of parents, expectations at school, comparisons on social media. They don't need to be formally taught. They circulate in the air. And when you challenge them, punishment doesn't necessarily come in words, but in looks, subtle rejections, silent exclusions. The game of life, then, is not just about what we do, but how we adjust to these rules. Those who learn to play well, smile at the right moment, show ambition, hide weaknesses, advance on the board. But Watts warns us, playing a fake game well does not make the victory real. Hacking life in this context means seeing the hidden rules and consciously deciding which ones you want to play by. It's not about becoming an anarchist, but about selecting your games with clarity. You realize that you don't have to follow the script of get married at 30, be visibly successful at 40, be relevant online. You start to build your own metrics. The first step in breaking the rules is realizing that they exist. Only then comes the difficult question. What is left of you when the applause stops, when the likes disappear, when no one is watching? This question does not destroy the game. It expands it. Have you ever asked yourself, what does winning in life really mean? Alan Watts dismantles this idea with uncomfortable precision. He shows us that the notion of victory we pursue is a trap, a carrot dangled in front of a donkey. We chase it, but it always moves away. We get the job, we want the promotion. We find love, we want stability. We make money, we want more. The game feeds itself. The point here is not that achieving things is wrong, but that turning them into proof of personal worth is an illusion. Watts argues that the game of winning is programmed to never deliver ultimate satisfaction. It's like a video game that generates endless levels. Every time you beat it, a new level appears, more difficult, more addictive. What's more, comparing yourself to others amplifies the illusion. You don't just want to win, you want to win more than others. It's a phantom competition where the parameters are constantly changing. This keeps the mind restless, trapped, afraid to stop. When we realize the illusion, an internal breakdown occurs. Suddenly, the race loses its charm. You begin to realize that true freedom is not in winning, but in breaking free from the win-lose logic. You understand that you can play out of curiosity, for pleasure, for expression, not just for victory. Here's a truth that many people don't want to hear. The more you need to win, the less freedom you have. Alan Watts gives us a powerful key: strategic detachment. It's not about giving up the game, but about playing without being consumed by it. The secret is not in abandoning goals or challenges, but in not attaching your identity to them. In other words, go after things without letting them define who you are. Letting go doesn't mean becoming passive. It means playing with lightness, with humor, with an awareness that the game is temporary, fluid, unpredictable. When you understand that winning or losing doesn't touch your core value, you start playing with an almost dangerous clarity. You have nothing left to lose. In practice, strategic detachment changes everything. You negotiate better because you're not desperate. You create better because you're not afraid of judgment. You relate better because you're not trying to control others. Watts reminds us that life works like music or dance. The purpose is not to get to the end of the song, but to enjoy every note, every step. When you dance just to get across the floor, you lose the meaning. When you dance for the sake of movement itself, everything changes. But be careful. True detachment is not a pose. It is not, I don't care about anything. That is just another ego in disguise. Real detachment is inner relaxation, a deep confidence that you are already complete before you gain anything. So here's a challenge for you. What would you do today if you weren't afraid of losing? Have you ever noticed that, over the course of your life, you've become a character? A role so fixed that you've lost your spontaneity? Alan Watts challenges us to break away from the character we've created, from the armor we wear to survive life's challenges. But what happens when we take off the mask? What is left of us? The truth is that often when playing the game of life, we forget that we are more than the story we tell ourselves and others. The character you play may be necessary for the game, but it is not you. It is just a set of behaviors, expectations, and defenses that we build to get through the world. The trap is in thinking that we are just that. For example, the leader who hides behind rational decisions, the introvert who never allows themselves to express themselves, the athlete who is only defined by their performance. The crucial point is that true freedom comes when you realize that you no longer need to justify your existence through the character. When you see the game as a collective creation, you start playing without worrying so much about the consequences. Because what really matters is the present moment, the raw experience, not the image you are projecting. Breaking the character is not simply trying to be authentic or different. It is deeper than that. It is allowing yourself to be unpredictable, without the pressure of always being what others expect of you. You can, from time to time, abandon the role of the tireless worker and embrace the human being on pause. You can let go of the role of the strategist and live as the creative improviser. When you start to break out of character, you discover something curious. You're already playing better. Because when you remove the weight of a fixed identity, you gain the lightness of being more true, more fluid, more natural. When was the last time you did something just for the pleasure of doing it, without seeking profit, approval, or status? Alan Watts reminds us of a powerful truth. Life gains color when we play for the sake of the game itself. Just like children who run on the beach without needing to get somewhere, we too are made for flow, not just for the end goal. The problem arises when we forget this and turn everything into competition, metrics, comparison. The pleasure of playing for the sake of playing is not a luxury. It is a human necessity. When we are fully immersed in an activity just for the pleasure of being in it, we access the famous state of flow. We lose track of time, performance, ego. We touch a deeper dimension of ourselves, where the mind relaxes and the body acts naturally. But here's the catch. The cultural system we live in does not value pure play. It values results. It wants you to run, not to feel the wind on your face, but to post the medal on Instagram. It wants you to paint, not for the pleasure of color, but to sell the artwork. It wants you to love, not for the authentic encounter, but to fulfill a social checklist. Watts hacks this logic by saying, dance not to get somewhere, but because the music is playing right now. When you internalize this, work becomes more creative, relationships more alive, life more flavorful. Not because you've abandoned your responsibilities, but because you've stopped sacrificing the present moment on the altar of the future. The big question, is it possible to leave the game without abandoning the board? Alan Watts shows us that it is. He proposes a paradoxical way out. You don't have to run away from life or become a hermit in the mountains. The real way out is to stay in the game, but with your eyes open, playing with awareness, not attachment. This means realizing that social rules, roles, goals, and even crises are all part of a great theater. But instead of rejecting them or fighting against everything, you begin to participate with lightness, almost like an actor who knows he is on stage but still acts with passion. Leaving the game doesn't mean you abandon your dreams or responsibilities. It means you stop playing to prove something. You can work, love, create, fight, but you do so from a calm inner center, not from existential anxiety. It's like being the player who knows they're in the game, while others still believe that winning is a matter of life and death. This player smiles more, takes more risks, falls and gets up more quickly, because they are not betting their identity on the outcome. In practice, getting out of the game while remaining in it is an exercise in presence. It is remembering at all times that who you are does not depend on what you achieve, that you can live intensely without drowning in the drama of the character. If life is a game, who is the real hacker? Alan Watts suggests that the greatest trick is not in manipulating the external world, but in reprogramming your own mind. The inner hacker is the one who discovers how to break the rules of internal conditioning, fear, attachment, pride, vanity, and from there, acts with freedom in the world. While most people try to hack the game by accumulating power, money, or persuasion techniques, the real hacker goes deeper. He observes his own thoughts as if dismantling source code. He notices the emotional loops that bind him. I need to be loved. I can't fail. I need to control, and begins to disable these commands. This process is not theoretical. It is visceral. It begins when you notice fear arising and choose not to obey, when you notice pride inflating and choose silence, when you feel anxiety exploding and decide to breathe instead of react. The inner hacker knows. The real revolution begins in the software of the mind. Watts provokes us to laugh at the traps of the ego, not to go to war against it. The ego is not an enemy. It is just a system that needs to be updated. And that update happens when you choose to respond to life with more presence, more humor, more curiosity. We have reached the end, but not a point of arrival. Alan Watts reminds us, life is not a race with a trophy at the end. It is a dance. And those who understand this stop advancing obsessively and begin to move with presence, grace, and lightness. All of the previous topics, noticing the board, letting go of roles, laughing at the rules, detaching from victory, hacking the ego, have prepared us for this final shift, living like a dancer. The big takeaway here is simple and profound. Freedom doesn't come from escaping the game, but from dancing within it without getting lost. When you play just to win, the game devours you. When you play for the pleasure of movement, it sets you free. You come to love the journey more than the destination, the questions more than the answers. This does not mean romanticizing life or pretending that difficulties do not exist. It means going through these difficulties with an awareness that is not reduced to them. It is laughing in the midst of chaos, loving even when everything is uncertain, creating without needing applause. It is being someone who participates in the human game, but with the eyes of someone who has already understood the trick. Ultimately, Watts offers us a dangerous and liberating philosophy. The only real victory is to transform life into a conscious dance. Not an escape, not a performance, but a living surrender to the moment. This video isn't just for watching, it's for transforming the way you play the game of life. Tell us in the comments, what invisible rule have you realized you need to hack in your life? We'll see you in the next video.